Welcome to our Zoom about how to facilitate children to amazing results. Thank you for taking the time and joining us today. Thank you, everyone who joined us live, who is joining us later. Welcome to each and every one of you. Now, in the present or the future, this topic is huge. How to facilitate children and working with children is a huge topic. And this conversation for all of us, whether you're here for your own children, for your own grandchildren, whether you're here as someone who would like to begin working with children or is working with children as a teacher or in some other as a doctor or a therapist or in whatever way you work with children, you're very welcome. This topic really is for any and all of us who have anything to do with children. All of us have something to do with children. This pragmatic way of dealing with each other is an invitation of doing what works. What works in working with children, we often try to we go at things with a lot of judgment. What I've noticed with people who work with children, who have children, who work with children, is that you often are plagued with so many amazing judgments. Am I doing this right? Am I doing enough? Am I going at this in the right way? There's so much stress involved. And you begin to control the way you are acting and the way the children are acting, and the stress just gets bigger and bigger. So what we try to get the stuff done perfectly and do it all perfectly. Let's do what works. Listen to yourself, trust yourself that you know what is necessary, and also that you trust yourself with the child or with the young person. This is the basic invitation, the basic foundation that I would like to invite and that I work with, that I would like to invite you to work with. What I really noticed when I was studying to be a psychologist, I had to write a paper about children and working with children. And the families work together with families who, like, before the birth and from the first child or second child, it was depends. And it was so interesting to watch them and to be in these conversations. They were trusting themselves in what we were going to do, but as soon as the child came, they suddenly didn't trust themselves anymore. They were like, oh, I don't know, am I doing it right? They're going to books, how am I doing this? And the experts know how to do this, and looking for the answers in the outside. And what this showed me way back then is that so many people don't trust themselves when it comes to children. Although it's one of the most natural things in the world, we were all children ourselves sometimes. And this basic trust, to allow ourselves to have this basic trust, it's necessary in any moment. And what things should look like. And what about if you just once again ask yourself the question, wow, what is necessary that I can trust myself? What would it take for me to trust in myself? What do I know about myself as a child? What do I know? What do I know about this child and working with children that I have not yet recognized for myself? To ask yourself this question and to allow yourself to know what you know. And I've this children's program, how long have we had this? For a couple of years now, where we do a 5-week program, online program, working with children. The participants who come who have different reasons for being there, their parents, teachers, grandparents, doctors, counselors, who are always speaking for so much in distress where they think, I don't know how to deal with this child, especially if the kid is different in some way. This is an invitation. What about you? You just ask the question of yourself, what do I know? What do I know? We all have our own perception, and we each have our own amazing GPS, our own amazing navigation system, where you trust to know exactly where what the next step is. We have to trust ourselves that we have this feeling, that we have this perception. We can't know. The feeling that we can't know, that you have to do it right, that you have to get all this information. Trust yourself. What if you didn't have to compare yourself with other people? What if how other people do it, how other people are approaching things? What if you didn't have to base yourself on that for what you can trust and do and create in your life? What if for one moment, just as a practice, if you can imagine you come back from another, imagine you came from another planet and you've never heard anything about what's right and what's wrong, what's good and what's bad. You just come here and you have no point of comparison, reference. You have yourself as your resource. How would you do it? You were your own resource. How would you do it with your children? How would you work with children? How would you interact with children? How different could it be for you? And this is something that we can ask ourselves. Each question opens new possibilities. We can ask ourselves, let's wait and see. How much do I know? How much knowledge and knowing is inside me already that I can trust? You can take a few examples. Say, okay, if you have worked with children before, perhaps, where did you do this differently than others, or differently than it's done in the area where you are? But do you have one example, maybe just one example where you did something differently than other people, where you didn't do what was expected or what is the normal way of doing things, and it worked? You all have at least one example. At least one example of the things that you know. Some of you are nodding, yeah. Okay, maybe you have even more, maybe more than one. But take that and remember that. And wow, yeah, I can totally trust and recognize that I can trust myself. In Austrian German, they say they shake that off a little bit, like you don't pay attention to it. You can't really translate into normal German. And in English, it would be something like you just kind of say, yeah, it wasn't that. You brush it off. So it's not really that important. Kind of like, instead of really taking it and saying, wow, what did I do there that is normal? It kind of came out of me. That created more. Where's my... This may be better now. Sorry about that. Yeah. Lower your own barriers, the walls around you, and say, hey, what have I facilitated? What have I, that comes from Latin, it means to make something easier. What have I already made easier for this child or whichever child, and for me, through the way that I did it in my own way? And in recognizing that, then you're empowering yourself, because knowing that you know what's required in this given situation. And we can gift ourselves this empowerment. And something that we often do with children is, you notice you have the child or the children, and there is you. In what direction does the energy often flow? Often the energy flows from the adult to the kid. You try to do the right thing, you try to nourish the child, you try to make sure everything is okay for the child, and we do a lot for the child. Have you noticed that? you notice that the energy goes towards the child. But if you're the child, how was it for you when you were a child, if you can remember that? Or how do you think it is for a child if everybody's like focusing at you, giving you this energy? And then one way it's nice, you're the center of attention, you get a lot of attention. Maybe you can remember how that was as a child yourself and later as a teenager. Or maybe if you could just imagine how this energy flow is, how is it for you as if somebody's always like putting the energy in your direction? Is it always nice and pleasant, or is it sometimes stressful or not? I see in some of the chats, you feel a little bit like pressured, pressed down, like leave me alone, just give me some space, especially in like with mom and dad, like they're just overpowering me and it's just too much and I feel just and this is something we don't usually look at. We think I just want to do the best for my child, I want to give them everything they need and all that, but what we don't always take a look at is what does this create? What how am I interacting with the child, and what if when the child just says rejects you and you're like, I just was doing everything for the child, I was doing everything, giving them everything they wanted, everything they needed, doing the best for them, why are they not wanting what I'm giving them? It's not always the reason why children push their parents away or push others away, but it can often have this connection where what is it like if you imagine for yourself, if people are always pushing the energy at you, how would you react? And that's often how the children then react, and they're like, the kids just say, just leave me alone, just leave me alone. And then you get in this cycle, and the kid says, leave me alone. And what do? You're like, I'm not going to leave you alone. Then we go even more, we push a little more, and we try even more. Oh, look at this, and oh, try this, and oh, this would be so good for you. And the kid's like, leave me alone even more. And you get this cycle, you get this stress, you're controlling even more, you're getting you just have this thing that everybody knows, this, seeing the scenarios that you've got with teenagers, whatever, if you turn up your awareness, and that's nothing other than turning up like light, and turn the light on basically, and you see so much more clear what's happening. And when you turn the light on and you say, oh wow, I've been a little bit much, haven't I? This started because I've really kind of been pushing. I want way too much. And what could we do differently? And I think you know this. This is nothing new. You know this. This is all things that we probably never really looked at so exactly, because you just do it the way you've always done it, or because this is the way we do it. It's how other people do it. This is how we know, how we've experienced it. But if we ask ourselves, how could this be done differently? How could we do this differently? And before I say more, maybe you can think and feel a little bit into yourself. How could I do this differently? What do you know? What do you feel or perceive? Before I continue on, you don't have to write it all in the chat if you don't want, but what maybe you have ideas. She's reading from the German chat. Since I give my son, somebody's writing, since I give my son choice, give him, let him choose, it makes life a lot easier. When we ask the questions, we already know a lot, but we're often not aware of how much we know until we start looking at it and start researching, start asking questions. And we're like, I don't need any expert from the outside for this. I know a lot already. I just haven't ever looked really at what I know. Asking a question, not fighting, really listening. People are writing, we stay relaxed. These things, These are all things. Yeah. In other words, you could say allowance. Allowance. Allowance means not pushing against, but also not going into this is right, this is wrong. It is the way it is. And this is a huge key, a huge key for more ease, more lightness with yourself, with children, later with teenagers. Ta-da! Because there is the next challenge. I know that we know that from ourselves, yeah. Youth, teenagers is the next. Yeah, I need the next portion of allowance when the kids get to be teenagers. We know this very well. Jürgen and I know this really well since last year. Joy is now 20 years old. The last few years have been, oh yeah, and we want and da da da. And even when we know the tools, we have to keep reminding ourselves, okay, allowance. Wait, be patient, let your allowance be greater than your awareness. How can I act? How can I be in a way that works? In the moment, be aware. Now I'm pushing against. Okay, now I want to. And in that moment, when you're aware, okay, stop. You say to yourself, stop. How else can I go at this? How, instead of pushing, how can I just conduct energy? For example, I can let the energy go in the other direction. I can pull the energy from behind the child, through the child to myself. This is a tool we can use just to dissolve this resistance. I can just let myself be. I can go into the allowance. This is really something to practice. It's not something you can just say, oh, I've chosen allowance and I'll be there forever and ever. There's something, a continuous choice. It's enough to be in this moment. I'm doing this again. Stop. Maybe you know an access tool called Pod and Puck. Clearing statement. Maybe you've read it in my books or from other courses. There's different tools. You can just stop. Okay, what else could I do now? What else could I be now? These are a few, this basic foundation of being allowance. What else? What else could help us to have more ease with this? Yeah. Okay. What would it be like if you would allow yourself, instead of just contributing to the child in that one direction, how would it be if the child could contribute to you? If it would be allowed to contribute to you, not just that, but you would allow yourself to receive. Have you ever considered receiving from your child? What this, of course, requires letting go of control. Oops, this is the word, control. We love this word, control. We're all really good. We all have the black belt. We're really top experts in control. Recognize that. It's not bad. It's not terrible. We can be aware of it. How can I use this in a pragmatic way? How can it work for me? But receiving is often the next important key for ease. Can I allow myself to receive from my child? Can I allow myself to let go of the control and to look, okay, wow, what can I receive that I haven't been willing to receive before? Yeah. And when you've got young people, at least then you realize you don't have control. That's like the last, at least at that point, you realize, okay, I'm not in control here. So those are two keys that there are so many. This is just a short Zoom together to look at some of these, to give you a few tools, a little bit of idea of what it means, what to work magically with children, what is different in this approach. What I've often noticed is in my work is that the parents are so worried so often that they need to be very careful with their children, that they don't give them negative patterns for their future. I have to laugh. This is some logical, psychological approaches that make so much stress, because look at yourself. How did you grow up? What are you used to from your parents that they wanted to, what molds they wanted you to go into, to grow into? Did it really limit you so much that you say that you didn't say yes to life, that you didn't say, okay, what works for me? What do I want to create further? We wouldn't be in this kind of a conversation now if you had just followed everything from your parents. Would you trust your parents that no matter how many mistakes you make, or how many what all you might do wrong, that your children are not going to be limited and stopped through that? How many limitations would you have to project onto your children to have them be so limited through you that they would not be able to have any options in the future? This is something we really project onto children that we don't even notice. What kind of point of view do we have? It's like, yeah, this is the way it is. If I'm not perfect, oh my gosh, goodness, my child's not going to be able to live his own life later on because I'm such a bad whatever. It's amazing to be aware of what am I projecting onto the child about his or her future. What if we didn't have to do this? What if we didn't have to any kind of point of view, any kind of judgment, any kind of projection onto the child? And if I scream and yell, if I flip out once in a while, what if it's not the end of the world for the child or for us? And what if even worse, perhaps, if you hold yourself back in order not to yell and you start boiling up inside, and the child feels that you're a pressure cooker, even if you're holding yourself back and you're not going to say anything because you'll explode. And the kid feels that. The kid is in this world. It feels totally that there's pressure in the adults, and it reacts anyway because you're holding it back. But if you at some point say, okay, I'm going to scream over a little bit because I can't think of anything else to do. This is what's in me right now, or whatever. You say, hey, I'm really sorry, that was a bit loud. What kind of ease and relief would that bring? So this stress to having to be perfect all the time, to letting go of that, and to notice the kids feel, they notice, they perceive, they're like, they've got their antennas all over in all directions, especially kids who are different. There are kids who are so sensitive, they feel everything. The ones that are different, for example, they feel everything. And whether you're speaking it loud or not, and the more honest you are, the easier it is. What if you don't have to be perfect anymore? I have a few things in chat now. Not having to be perfect yourself, what a relaxation that can be for later, just able to be yourself. What if you just allow yourself to be with your children, also with your children? Wow. So even I could talk about this forever, because this is really something that's such a topic for all of us. What this conversation is, working with children, with your own children, what that brings up also from your own childhood, that you notice, wow, oh my goodness, my own mother is speaking through me, just what I never wanted to do. Now I'm saying that I didn't know this was still in my world, it's still inside me. And then either you channel your own moms, for example, so to speak, or you really try to do the opposite, do nothing like your mom. And this we often see this in these methods of raising children, where it's all reaction to your own childhood, being like or being unlike. What if you didn't have to react to your own childhood? But you said, okay, there was a lot which maybe wasn't fine, wasn't great. That's the way it was. We all have different things that we experienced. And what if we don't have to react from our own childhood anymore? What can I take with me from this? What awareness? What can I learn from this? What awareness from my own childhood can I take with me that I what if nothing that I experienced as a child was right or wrong? It was the way it was. And what is possible now? What I do in practice, I do both, depending on what's required. I work with parents, children, sometimes just with the children, sometimes with children and parents. It really depends on what creates more in this moment. I look at what's required and what creates more in the moment. So what we offer, what we're offering, what I do each year, once a year, I do this 5-week program, and this next one is starting 3rd of February, I think she said. We have calls like this one, 1-hour calls. There's a handbook, there's a Telegram group for inspiration in between, asking questions in between, videos with various tips, where you can find out for yourself, how can I interact differently with children, whether I'm doing it with my own children as a parent, whether I'm doing it as through my work with children, and using the tools of pragmatic psychology. Pragmatic psychology is something I developed years ago. I've written a few books about it, and hold workshops on different topics. And one of these topics is working with children. I train other people. They're called pragmatic practitioners. Some of them are here tonight. And they're people who work with other people, children, adults, and they are trained in how can I use these pragmatic psychology tools for myself and for my work with others. And there are a number of people around the world now who are using these tools and teaching them to others, who are working in a very different way with parents, with children. And wow, it creates such a different kind of ease with children, with adults. And in this program, I'm on the side, there's various modules. One of them, for example, is empowering instead of raising or educating. Educating or raising is telling the children, this is the way to go, do it this way, do this, then, and then you do this and that, and this is the right way to do it, this is the wrong way. Empowering is, instead of saying the children what they should do, which they often then resist and they get in this fight situations, is to ask questions of the children or of yourself. How can I work with questions with children where you look together with the children? What do they know? They know a lot. Their bodies know a lot, but they're hardly ever asked. They're told, but they're not asked. So imagine you were asked when you were a child. When I was a child, I don't know from my own childhood that I was asked, what do you know? What's good for your body right now? What's good for you right now? I didn't know that. I didn't experience that. That's not how I was raised. Or what would you enjoy? Even in free time, in your recreational time. This is good for you. In the free time, when you have free time, you should do this and that. This will bring you further in life, whatever. It's not what would you like to do, what would be fun for you. Maybe it was different for you. This is the way I was raised. We weren't asked that very seldom. Imagine you had been asked, you had been practicing, you had been given the opportunity to practice this muscle, being asked, what do you know? What's right for you? Imagine that. Wow, how much trust would you have already practiced? How fit would you be now for the future, for creating your own life? Where you have so much more, would have so much more naturalness, so much more where you're like, I'm creating my own life. I'm not just copying somebody else. I'm creating. So many people copy the lives of other people. He or she did this in that way. I'll do it this and that way. Seldom have we practiced this, used this muscle. How do I want to create my life? And what steps can I take? Imagine we practice this now with the children. What kind of clarity, what kind of certainty can they have? How fit would they be for creating their own futures instead of following others and copying others and being frustrated and being followers? What if they are leader? What if we inspire leaders instead of people who are just following other people and copying other people? This is empowering instead of training. Another one of the modules, I don't want to go through all of them right now, but another one that's it's coming to mind right now is to support and encourage this being different. So many of these kids, they bring something with us, which this reality just, it doesn't fit in this reality. It just doesn't match. And they come into school and the system here that we still have, it's a little middle-aged, medieval, but this school system that we have and all of that, it often doesn't fit how they are. And then there's the question of, what do we do? How can we work with the kid that it doesn't have to make itself small and comprised to get to fit work into the system, but neither do you have to continually fight against the system. It feels like we have these two options. Either we fight against it because I don't fit into it, or I make myself small to fit into something I don't fit into. How can we deal with this school and this reality if we're different? Not to try to fit in, but also not to fight against. This is a big part of what we talk about in one of these modules or in this course. And any and all questions that you bring with, a lot of questions come up. What you want to know, what you bring with, what's important for you at this point. Not just that I'm giving you information like a lecture, but any questions are available, are welcome. Personal questions. People ask really personal questions often. How can I, in this situation with my child or with the child I work with, how can I, if I'm a doctor, if I'm a teacher, how can I go with this and that situation? I don't know what to do here, etc. So this is also part of the course, a big part. School is often a program that makes unhappiness for teachers, parents, and children. And this is so true. What if it doesn't have to be that way? I'd love to ask this question. What if it doesn't have to be a big stress moment? What if there are tools, other perspectives, how we can really go with this differently? I hope you've taken a little bit of this, a different space, a different way of going at this. You all get the recording of this Zoom. Sometimes the second time or third time listening, you hear, she said this, she said that. Oh, yeah, second, third time you hear more than the first, and you have some tools, or you have a handful of tools already that I hope you can take with you and be able to use them, and that'll be a contribution for you. If this course, if it's like a ping, ping, if it's kind of pulls you, we'd love to have you in February in this program that's starting beginning of February. Sometimes the children join the parents. If the children want to be there at the Zooms, they're more than welcome to be there. I feel the kids, the children often feel they're like pulled, they're drawn to this, they want to be there. You have to see if it works. You don't have to have the children there. You can have the children there. It's up to you. Otherwise, if you'd like some other inspirations, I've written 4 books so far. The 5th is coming out in February 2025. The 6th one is in the works. There's a lot about tools. There's one children's book that I've written. but it's actually not, turns out not to be just for children. It's adults are enjoying it. It's called Where's Henry? It's been used in schools. I wrote it in German. It's also in English and Hungarian and maybe some other languages. I'm not sure. It's been used sometimes for children in class, language lessons for practicing English or German or whatever. There are videos on YouTube, on my website, etc. There are a lot of resources where you get a feel for the approach of pragmatic psychology. I'm so glad to have had you here with us this evening, and I'd love to have you with us in February. I'd love to look forward to seeing you again, wherever, whenever. And I hope that tonight has been a contribution, inspiration. Thank you, Becky, for translating into English. That's me. Thank you, Isadora and everyone. Love to see you. Ingrid has something to say. At the Zoom link or through the email, via the link for the Zoom, you can get the link for the recording. If you have any questions, ask us. Enjoy yourselves in the world with everything that you are, everything that you bring into the world. Instead of making judgments real, turn on the gas, unpack, be you.